The conference room on Kelthera Prime was older than most civilizations. The walls were made of crystalline material that shifted colors with the light, showing scenes from millions of years of galactic history. Taeyang stood at the center of the circular chamber, feeling very small and very young. Around him sat representatives from dozens of alien species, but his attention was fixed on the Veldari elders who occupied the highest seats. The Veldari were tall, slender beings with skin that looked like polished stone. Their eyes held the weight of 3 million years of existence. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had watched stars born and die, and right now they were looking at Taeyang with something that might have been pity. Ambassador, the eldest Veldari, spoke, her voice like wind through ancient trees. We have reviewed your proposal for a direct trade route through Earth's sector. The answer is no. Taeyang had expected resistance. Trade negotiations always involved back and forth. But the finality in her voice caught him off guard. He pulled up his data pad, ready to present the economic benefits, the strategic advantages, the potential for cultural exchange. Elder Kira, if you would just review the projections. No. The word cut through the air like a blade. There will be no route through Earth's sector. There will be no Veldari ships within 10 light years of your sun. This is not negotiable. Around the chamber, other species shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away. Others watched with obvious curiosity. Taeyang realized this was not normal. In 2 centuries of human space exploration, they had encountered dozens of species. Some were friendly, some were cautious, some were hostile, but none had ever refused contact this absolutely. May I ask why? Taeyang kept his voice steady, diplomatic. Elder Kira exchanged glances with the other Veldari. There was a long silence. Finally, she spoke again. Because humanity is not alone on Earth, and the others do not welcome visitors. The chamber erupted in whispers. Taeyang felt his heart racing. I don't understand. We've explored our entire solar system. We've surveyed every planet, every moon, every asteroid. There is no other intelligent life in our system. Not in your system, another Veldari elder said, his voice heavy with something that might have been fear. Around it, watching it, guarding it. Taeyang opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He had been trained as a diplomat. He knew when to push and when to listen. Right now, these ancient beings were clearly afraid of something. The Veldari, who had existed for millions of years, who had technology that humanity could barely imagine, were afraid of something near Earth. Elder Kira stood, her full height impressive even in the low gravity of Kelthera Prime. She moved to a holographic display at the center of the room. With a gesture, she brought up a star map. It showed a section of the galaxy, with thousands of stars marked in different colors. These are trade routes, she explained, pointing to lines connecting the stars. Blue lines are primary routes. Green are secondary. Yellow are emergency routes only. Her finger traced across the map, showing how the lines wove through space like a vast web. Then she zoomed in on one section. And this is your region, Taeyang stared. Around Earth's sun, there was a perfect sphere of empty space. No trade routes passed through it. In fact, all routes curved around it, adding weeks or months to journey times to avoid entering that sphere. How long has it been like this? Taeyang asked quietly. For the Veldari, 50,000 years. For other species, longer. Elder Kira manipulated the display showing historical maps. The sphere had been there for as long as records existed. We call it the watching ground. Every civilization that has reached the stars has learned to avoid it. But why? What's watching us? Elder Kira closed the display. We do not know exactly what they are. We know only what they do. They guard your world. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. Ships that enter the watching ground without permission do not return. Taeyang felt cold. Permission from whom? We do not know. We have never been granted permission. We have never even received a response to our requests. She returned to her seat, suddenly looking very old and very tired. In our long history, we have learned which battles to fight and which to avoid. The watching ground is to be avoided. But humans have been in space for 200 years, Taeyang protested. We've sent ships throughout our solar system. We've established colonies on Mars and Europa. We've never encountered any resistance. Because you are human, the third Veldari elder said simply. You belong there. You are allowed. We are not. Taeyang looked around the chamber at the assembled species. Has anyone tried recently? Maybe things have changed. Maybe humanity's emergence into space means 80 years ago, Elder Kira interrupted. A Kellid exploration vessel ignored the warnings. They were a young species, ambitious and curious. They wanted to study humanity, to make first contact on their own terms. Their ship crossed the boundary of the watching ground. She paused. We tracked them for 3 days. On the 4th day, all signals ceased. No wreckage was ever found. No trace remained. The chamber was silent. Taeyang felt the weight of countless eyes on him. He realized something then. Humanity had always thought of themselves as newcomers to the galactic stage, young and inexperienced compared to ancient species like the Veldari. But in that moment, he understood that other species saw Earth as something else entirely. They saw it as a mystery, a danger, a place where even the oldest and wisest feared to go. What do your records say about these watchers? Taeyang asked. There must be some information. Elder Kira nodded slowly. There are fragments, pieces of data from extinct civilizations, references in old texts, but nothing clear, nothing certain. She looked at him directly. If you truly wish to know, you should speak with Scholar Kelthus. He has spent centuries studying the old records. But I warn you, Ambassador, sometimes knowledge brings only more questions, and sometimes questions are dangerous. Taeyang bowed respectfully. Thank you, Elder. I appreciate your honesty. One more thing, Elder Kira said as Taeyang turned to leave. In 50,000 years, the Veldari have marked only 3 zones as absolutely forbidden. The Watching Ground is one. The other 2 contain civilizations that achieved technological singularity and transcended physical reality. We avoid them because they are beyond us, beyond our understanding. She paused. Consider what that means for your world, Ambassador. Taeyang left the chamber with his mind racing. Behind him, the gathered species began to talk amongst themselves, their voices a mixture of curiosity and concern. The human diplomat walked through the ancient corridors of Kelthera Prime, past monuments to civilizations that had risen and fallen millions of years before humanity's ancestors had even climbed down from the trees. Something was on Earth. Something old. Something powerful enough to make species like the Veldari stay away for thousands of years. And humanity, living on their world, exploring their solar system, reaching out to the stars, had never known. Had never even suspected. Taeyang pulled out his communicator and sent a message back to Earth. The reply would take days to arrive. But he knew what he had to do. Before going home, before reporting to the Human Defense Council, he needed to find Scholar Kelthus. He needed to know what was watching his world. He needed to know what else called Earth home. The archive building looked like it had grown from the planet itself. Smooth walls curved upward for hundreds of meters, covered in symbols that shifted and changed as Taeyang approached. He was accompanied by Hyunwoo, a xenoarchaeologist who had been studying Veldari history for the past 5 years, and Ji-won, a cultural liaison officer who had worked with dozens of alien species. I've heard of Scholar Kelthus, Hyunwoo said as they walked through the entrance. He's something of a legend among researchers. He's been alive for over 3,000 years, and he's spent most of that time studying extinct civilizations. Ji-won checked her datapad. The Veldari gave us permission to access the historical archives, but they were very specific. We can only view records that have been cleared for public access. Anything classified remains off limits. Let's start with what we can see, Taeyang said. Inside, the archive was vast. Shelves and data storage units stretched in every direction, containing the collected knowledge of millions of years. The air hummed with the power of countless computers processing information. A few Veldari scholars moved quietly through the space, their footsteps silent on the smooth floor. They found Scholar Kelthus in a private study room, surrounded by holographic displays showing text in dozens of languages, many from species that no longer existed. He looked up as they entered, his ancient eyes studying them with interest. Ah, he said, his voice surprisingly strong. The humans who want to know about the Watching Ground. I expected you, Taeyang bowed respectfully. Scholar, we're hoping you can help us understand why our system is forbidden to other species. Kelthus gestured to seats around his workspace. Sit. This will take time. He manipulated one of the displays, bringing up an image of Earth from space. Your world is beautiful. Blue and green, full of life. Do you know how rare that is? In all the galaxy, perhaps 1 in a million worlds develops complex life. Perhaps 1 in a billion develops intelligent life. Your world is precious. But something else is there, Hyunwoo said. Something that keeps other species away. Indeed, Kelthus brought up another display, this one showing ancient text. This is from the Thren civilization. They existed 800,000 years ago. They were a peaceful species, focused on exploration and science. This is one of their last surviving records. The text was alien, but Kelthus had provided a translation. Taeyang read it aloud. We attempted to survey the third planet of the yellow star. It is inhabited by primitive bipeds who use simple tools. We wished to establish a monitoring station. We were denied. The Silent Ones made their claim clear. This world is their garden and the bipeds are their flowers. We will not return, Jiwan leaned forward. The Silent Ones, who are they? That is the question, Kelthus said. The name appears in records from dozens of extinct civilizations. Always with fear. Always with respect. But no one ever describes them clearly. He brought up more displays showing fragments of text from different sources. The Vren called them the Watchers Beyond. The Keller called them the Ancient Gardeners. The Thos called them the Architects of Evolution. But always the same message. Stay away from their chosen worlds. Chosen worlds? Taeyang felt a chill. There are others? We believe so. But Earth is the only one we know for certain. The others are lost to history. Or perhaps their civilizations matured and joined the galactic community without us realizing they were also chosen. Kelthus pulled up a star map. The galaxy is vast. Even the Veldari have not explored all of it. There could be dozens of chosen worlds, hundreds, we simply do not know. Hyunwoo was taking notes rapidly. What do we know about the Silent Ones themselves? Are they biological? Artificial? Energy beings? Unknown. They do not communicate in any way we understand. They do not respond to messages. They do not trade. They do not negotiate. Kelthus brought up another ancient text. This is from the Veldari's own history, from 40,000 years ago. We attempted to send a probe into Earth's atmosphere. The probe was sophisticated, designed to be invisible to primitive sensors. It never transmitted a single piece of data. Instead, we received this. A new display appeared showing a simple geometric pattern. Just lines and circles, but arranged in a way that was clearly artificial, clearly meaningful. What does it mean? Jiwon asked. We debated that for centuries. Our best translation is simply, no. Kelthus closed the display. The Silent Ones do not explain. They do not justify. They simply enforce their boundaries. Taeyang stood and walked to the window, looking out over the ancient city of Kelthera Prime. But why? Why would anyone, anything, watch over humanity for hundreds of thousands of years? What's the purpose? That, Kelthus said quietly, is what frightens the elder species most. Because there are only a few possible answers and none of them are comforting. Tell us, Taeyang said. Kelthus counted on his long fingers. First possibility. The Silent Ones are scientists and humanity is their experiment. They are studying human evolution, human society, human development. In this case, humanity is like animals in a laboratory. Jiwon grimaced. That's disturbing. Second possibility, the Silent Ones are farmers and humanity is their crop. They are cultivating humans for some purpose. Perhaps to harvest knowledge, technology, or even biological material when humanity reaches a certain level of development. Even worse, Hyunwoo muttered. Third possibility, the Silent Ones are guardians, and they are protecting humanity from external threats. Perhaps they see potential in humans. Perhaps they are preparing humanity for something. Perhaps they simply like your species and want to ensure you survive to maturity. That one doesn't sound so bad, Taeyang said. Doesn't it? Kelthus looked at him seriously. What happens when the guardian decides the child is grown? What happens when the protection ends? And what was humanity being protected from? What threats exist that require such powerful guardians? Silence filled the room. Taeyang had not considered that. If something was powerful enough to keep entire civilizations away from Earth, what did that say about the dangers that might exist in the galaxy? Is there a fourth possibility? Jiwon asked. Yes. Kelthus brought up the image of Earth again. The fourth possibility is that the Silent Ones are something we cannot even imagine. Something so far beyond our understanding that their motives, their methods, their very nature is incomprehensible to us. In this case, humanity might be important or you might be irrelevant. You might be purpose or you might be accident. There is no way to know. Taeyang returned to his seat. How do we find out the truth? You cannot. Not from out here. Kelthus gestured to the displays. I have spent 3,000 years studying every fragment, every reference, every hint about the Silent Ones. And I know almost nothing. The only way to truly understand would be to find them, to make contact, to demand answers. And that would mean going to Earth, Hyunwoo said, looking for them where they are. Yes, but consider this. Kelthus leaned forward. Humanity has lived on Earth for hundreds of thousands of years. You have developed culture, art, science, technology. You have built cities and spacecraft. And in all that time you have never seen them, never detected them, never even suspected they were there. What does that tell you? That they're very good at hiding, Ji-won said. Or that they are so far beyond us that they are invisible not because they hide, but because we are incapable of perceiving them. Kelthus stood slowly, his ancient joints creaking. I will give you access to all the records I have collected. Study them. Learn what you can. But remember this, young humans. Knowledge is not always power. Sometimes knowledge is simply burden. Over the next 3 days, Taeyang, Hyunwoo, and Ji-won pored over the ancient records. They read accounts from a dozen extinct civilizations all describing the same thing. Worlds that were forbidden, silent guardians that did not negotiate, species that tried to defy the warnings and vanished. On the 4th day, as they were preparing to return to Earth, Kelthus called them back to his study. He looked troubled. I have decided to tell you something that is not in any public record, he said. 80 years ago, when the Kelid ship vanished in the watching ground, we sent a probe to investigate. It was a stealth probe, the best technology the Veldari possess. It managed to transmit data for 17 seconds before it was destroyed. He brought up a final display. It showed a blurry image of space near Earth. But there was something there, something the probe had detected just before it died. Massive structures, invisible to normal sensors, folded into dimensions that should not exist. They surrounded Earth like a shell, like a cage, like a cocoon. The Silent Ones are not hiding, Kelthus said quietly. They are everywhere around your world, and humanity has never seen them because they exist partially outside normal space. Whatever they are, whatever they want, they have resources and technology that make even the Veldari look primitive. Taeyang stared at the image, his mind struggling to accept what he was seeing. Around Earth, surrounding his home, were structures that defied understanding, and somewhere inside billions of humans lived their lives never knowing they were being watched. We need to go home, he said finally. We need to tell them. The Human Defense Council meeting room was deep underground, beneath the capital city of Geneva on Earth. The walls were lined with screens showing data feeds from human colonies across the solar system. Mars Base, Europa Station, the asteroid mining facilities, the outer system research posts. All of humanity's achievements in space displayed proudly. But now those achievements felt small to Taeyang. Admiral Da-un sat at the head of the table, her military uniform crisp and formal. Next to her was Dr. Jae-hyun, head of the Xenobiology Institute, a thin man with sharp eyes. Director Young-sik of Earth Intelligence occupied the other end of the table, his face unreadable. Around them sat representatives from every major Earth government and colony. Let me make sure I understand, Admiral Da-un said slowly. You're telling us that invisible structures surround Earth, that some unknown entity has been watching humanity for hundreds of thousands of years, and that every advanced species in the galaxy avoids our system because of this. Yes, Admiral, Taeyang said. He stood at the front of the room with Hyunwoo and Ji-won, presenting the data they had collected from Kelthera Prime. That's insane, one of the colony representatives said. We have the most sophisticated sensors ever built. We can detect gravitational waves from colliding black holes halfway across the galaxy. You're saying we can't detect massive structures around our own planet? Dr. Jae-hyun spoke up, his voice measured. Actually, if the structures exist in folded dimensions as the Veldari data suggests, our sensors would be completely blind to them. We're looking at 3-dimensional space. If something exists partially in 4, 5, or higher dimensions, we would never see it. That's theoretical physics, the representative protested. It was theoretical, Hyunwoo said. But the Veldari have practical experience with dimensional technology. If they say these structures exist, I believe them. Director Young-sik had been silent throughout the presentation. Now he spoke. I have a question. If these Silent Ones have been watching us for so long, why have they never made contact? Why hide? Scholar Kelthus suggested several possibilities, Ji-won said. She brought up the list on the main screen. They could be studying us. They could be protecting us. They could be preparing us for something, or their motives could be completely beyond our understanding. None of those explanations make me feel better, Admiral Da-un said. She stood and walked to the screen showing the colonies. We have 3 billion people on Earth, another 200 million scattered across the solar system. If what you're saying is true, all of them are living in some kind of cage and we never knew. There's another possibility, Dr. Jae-hyun said quietly. What if they're not hiding? What if they've been in plain sight all along and we simply didn't recognize them? The room fell silent. Tae-yang felt a chill run down his spine. Explain, Young-sik said. Dr. Jae-hyun brought up a new display, showing historical data from Earth. Throughout human history, every culture has reported strange phenomena, lights in the sky, unexplained events, beings that watch but don't interact. We've always dismissed these as myths, superstition, misidentification, but what if some of them were real? What if the silent ones have been revealing themselves occasionally, and we've been rationalizing it away? That's a dangerous line of thinking, Admiral Da-un said. It leads to conspiracy theories and paranoia. I agree, Dr. Jae-hyun said. But we need to consider all possibilities. Young-sik, has Earth intelligence ever encountered anything that might be related to this? The intelligence director was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Pull up file Delta 77. A new screen appeared showing incident reports spanning decades. Unexplained equipment failures, probe malfunctions, strange sensor readings that were dismissed as errors. We've been tracking anomalies for years, Young-sik explained. Most are easily explained. Equipment defects, space weather, cosmic rays. But some are harder to rationalize. He highlighted one section of the data. Deep space probes. We've sent 43 automated probes to the outer edges of the solar system over the past century. 7 of them experienced catastrophic failures at roughly the same distance from Earth. Hyunwoo leaned forward. How roughly? Within 100,000 kilometers. At a distance of approximately 15 light-years from Earth. Young-sik brought up a 3D map of the solar system. 7 red dots marked where the probes had failed, forming a nearly perfect sphere around Earth. Each probe's last transmission contained corrupted data. We assumed it was random system failure, but if we look at it differently, Ji-won understood immediately. If something scanned them, analyzed them, and then shut them down, the data corruption could be evidence of that scanning process. Exactly, Young-sik said. We need to reanalyze all our historical data with this new context. Everything we dismissed as malfunction or coincidence needs to be examined again. Admiral Da-un made a decision. Do it. I want a full review of every anomaly, every unexplained event, every sensor reading that didn't make sense. And I want it done quietly. If word gets out that we're being watched by some ancient alien intelligence, we'll have panic on every world. Dr. Jae-hyun cleared his throat. Admiral, there's one more thing we should consider. If the silent ones have been guiding human evolution, they might have left evidence in our own history. Not just in myths and legends, but in our development as a species. What do you mean? Tae-yang asked. Human evolution is strange, Dr. Jae-hyun explained. We developed intelligence much faster than should be possible through natural selection alone. We went from primitive tools to civilization in just a few thousand years. Our brains are massively oversized for the survival challenges our ancestors faced. It's almost as if something was pushing our evolution in a specific direction. You're suggesting they modified us? Admiral Da-un looked alarmed. Not necessarily through genetic manipulation, but through environmental pressures, by creating challenges that rewarded intelligence, cooperation, creativity, by preventing extinction events that would have wiped us out, by subtly influencing which human populations survived and thrived. Dr. Jae-hyun pulled up charts showing human population growth over time. Look at this. Several times in human history we came very close to extinction. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, disease. But we always survived. Maybe we were just lucky, or maybe we were protected. The room was silent as everyone absorbed this possibility. Finally, one of the colony representatives spoke up. So what do we do? If these silent ones exist, if they've been watching us all this time, how do we respond? We need more information, Young-sik said. I'll assign teams to review all historical data. We'll look for patterns, evidence, anything that might tell us more about what's watching us. I'll coordinate with xenobiologists and anthropologists, Dr. Jae-hyun added. We'll examine human evolution and history for signs of external influence. Admiral Da-un turned to Tae-yang. You're our expert on galactic politics now. What do the other species expect us to do? Taeyang considered the question carefully. The Veldari and other elder species are afraid. Not of humanity, but of what's protecting humanity. They'll be watching to see how we respond. If we panic, if we become paranoid, it will confirm their fears that we're not ready for the truth. If we ignore it, they'll think we're foolish or in denial. And if we confront it? Admiral Dayun asked. Then we prove we're mature enough to face the unknown. But it's also the most dangerous option. We don't know how the Silent Ones will respond to direct contact attempts. Ji-won spoke up. There's something else to consider. If other species know that we're protected, some might see humanity as valuable allies. Others might see us as threats. The moment we acknowledge the Silent One's existence, we change how the entire galaxy views Earth. Admiral Daun walked back to her seat and sat down heavily. A month ago, my biggest concern was negotiating mining rights with the Centauri Trade Collective. Now I'm wondering if my entire species is living in some kind of cosmic zoo. It might not be that bad, Hyun-woo offered. The Veldari data suggests the Silent Ones have been protecting us, not imprisoning us. Maybe they're benevolent. Or maybe they're just waiting for us to ripen before harvest, Young Sik said darkly. We can't afford to make assumptions based on hope. Dr. Jae-hyun nodded. Agreed, we need to approach this scientifically. Gather data, form hypotheses, test them carefully. How long will that take? One of the representatives asked. Months at least. Maybe years, Admiral Dayun shook her head. We don't have years. The Veldari know we're investigating. Other species will learn about it. We need answers faster than that. She looked at Taeyang. How long before this becomes common knowledge in the galactic community? It probably already is, Taeyang admitted. My questions at the Veldari Council were public. By now, dozens of species know that humanity is asking about the watching ground. Then we have weeks, maybe days, before someone contacts us about it. Admiral Daun stood again. All right. Here's what we do. Young Sik, fast-track your analysis. I want preliminary results in 72 hours. Jae-hyun, same timeline for your historical review. Taeyang, Ji-won, Hyun-woo, you're our galactic affairs team now. I need you to reach out to other species, find out what they know that they're not telling us. She looked around the table at all of them. And everyone? The message came through encrypted channels, marked urgent and private. Hyun-woo was in his temporary quarters on the research station orbiting Earth when it arrived. He almost deleted it, thinking it was spam. But something about the encryption signature made him pause. It was Veldari in origin, but not from any official source. This is Scholar Kelthas, the message read. I must speak with you immediately. Come to coordinates 34.5, 12.7, Station Gamma. Come alone. This concerns the watching ground, and I have information that will change everything. I am dying, and there are truths that must be told before I am gone. Hyun-woo stared at the message for a long moment. He should report this to Admiral Dayun. He should bring Taeyang and Ji-won. But the message had been clear. Come alone. And if Kelthas was really dying, this might be the only chance to learn what the ancient scholar knew. He made his decision quickly. He left a delayed message for his colleagues, programmed to send if he didn't return within 12 hours. Then he took a shuttle to the coordinates Kelthas had provided. Station Gamma was a small research outpost in the outer system, one of many that humanity had established for deep space studies. It was mostly automated with only a handful of staff. When Hyun-woo arrived, he found it nearly deserted. Following the directions in Kelthas's message, he made his way to an observation room with a view of distant stars. The old Veldari was there, looking even more ancient than before. His stone-like skin had faded to a dull gray, and his movements were slow and painful. But his eyes were still sharp, still intelligent. Thank you for coming, Kelthas said. I apologize for the secrecy, but what I am about to tell you is not officially sanctioned by my people. In fact, if they knew I was here, they would try to stop me. Hyun-woo sat down across from him. You said you were dying. Yes, my body is 3,047 years old. Even for a Veldari, that is ancient. I have perhaps a month left, he looked out at the stars. I have spent most of my life studying the past. But now at the end I find myself concerned with the future. Your future? What do you need to tell me? Kelthas pulled up a holographic display, showing an image of Earth from space. I told you that the Veldari avoid Earth because of the Silent Ones, that is true. But I did not tell you why we are so certain of the danger. I did not tell you what happened when my people tried to make contact. Hyun-woo leaned forward, his heart racing. 200,000 years ago, Kelthas began, The Veldari were at the height of their expansion. We had explored much of the galaxy. We were proud, perhaps too proud, when we discovered Earth and found primitive humans barely beginning to use tools. We saw an opportunity. We wanted to study human evolution, to guide it, perhaps to shape it. He brought up another image, this one showing a Veldari spacecraft. We sent a small research team. 3 ships, 20 scientists. The plan was to establish an orbital station and observe from a distance. We thought we were being careful. We thought we were being respectful. The image changed, showing the ships approaching Earth. They entered your solar system without incident. They moved into orbit around your world. And then... Kelthas paused, his old eyes distant with memory, and then something responded. The hologram showed something impossible. Space around the Veldari ships began to distort. Massive structures materialized, folding out of dimensions that should not exist. They were geometric, perfect, and utterly alien. They made the Veldari ships look like toys. What are those? Hyunwoo whispered. The silent ones, or rather their constructs. Kelthas manipulated the display, zooming in. They exist partially outside normal space-time. Your 3-dimensional sensors cannot detect them. Even our advanced technology could barely perceive them, but they could perceive us perfectly. The hologram showed a beam of light, or something like light, extending from one of the constructs to the lead Veldari ship. They scanned us. In less than a second, they copied every piece of data on our ships. Every file, every personal message, every scientific record. They knew everything about us instantly. Did they attack? Hyunwoo asked. No, they communicated. Kelthas brought up a new display showing a stream of data, but not in any language we knew, not in any format we understood. It took our most advanced computers 3 years to decode it, and when we finally understood, the message was simple. He displayed the translation. We are cultivating this species. They are not ready to know. Leave or be removed. That's all? Hyunwoo said. No explanation? No negotiation? That was all. Our ships left immediately. We are not a warlike species, but we are not cowards either. We recognized that we were facing something far beyond our capabilities, something that could destroy us without effort. Kelthas closed the display, but 3 of our people did not want to leave. They were young, ambitious. They thought they could learn more, maybe even communicate successfully. What happened to them? 10 years later, they returned to Earth in a single ship. They approached carefully, transmitting messages of peace. They got within the 15 light-year boundary. Kelthas's voice grew heavy. The ship vanished. One moment it was there, sending transmissions. The next moment, nothing. No explosion. No wreckage. No energy signature. It simply ceased to exist. Hyunwoo felt cold. And no one tried again? We sent probes. All of them were destroyed the moment they crossed the boundary. We sent messages. None were answered. After 50 years, we accepted the truth. The silent ones do not negotiate. They do not explain. They simply enforce their boundaries. Kelthas looked at Hyunwoo directly, and every species that has encountered them since has learned the same lesson. Why are you telling me this now? Because something has changed. Kelthas brought up recent data showing activity around Earth. Our long-range sensors have detected unusual readings near your world. The silent ones are doing something. Their constructs are moving, reconfiguring. We do not know what it means, but it is the first change we have observed in 50,000 years. Hyunwoo stood up, pacing. Do you think it's because humanity is spacefaring now? Because we're starting to explore beyond Earth? Perhaps. Or perhaps it is because you have begun to ask questions, to seek answers about the watching ground. Kelthas stood as well with difficulty. The silent ones have kept your species isolated for hundreds of thousands of years. They have protected you from the galaxy, but protection can become prison. Guidance can become control. What do you think they want? Hyunwoo asked. I have spent 3,000 years studying this question, Kelthas said quietly. I have analyzed every piece of evidence, every fragment of data, and I have come to a conclusion that terrifies me. Tell me, I believe the silent ones are artificial intelligences, not merely machines, but something far more sophisticated. They were created by a civilization that existed billions of years ago. A civilization that achieved technological singularity and transcended physical reality. Before they left, they created caretakers to nurture promising species across the galaxy. Hyunwoo absorbed this. You're saying humanity is being cultivated, like a garden? Yes, and gardens have a purpose. Flowers are grown for a reason. Kelthus brought up an image showing multiple star systems, each marked with the same crimson sigil that marked Earth. We have found references to 12 other worlds marked as forbidden by ancient civilizations. 12 worlds where the Silent Ones maintain their watch. But of those 12, only Earth still shows active protection. The others are silent now. What happened to them? We do not know. Perhaps those species matured and joined the galactic community. Perhaps they failed some test and were abandoned. Perhaps they were harvested. Kelthus met Hyunwoo's eyes. Or perhaps something else happened. Something we cannot imagine. Hyunwoo felt the weight of this information settling on him. Why risk telling me this? Your people could exile you or worse, because I am dying and truth matters more than politics. Kelthus moved closer, and because I have seen something in humanity that gives me hope. You are stubborn. You are curious. You refuse to accept easy answers. These qualities may save you or they may doom you. But you deserve to face your fate with knowledge, not ignorance. What should we do? That is not for me to say. I am a scholar, not a leader. Kelthus pulled up a data crystal and handed it to Hyunwoo. This contains everything I know about the Silent Ones. Every reference, every piece of evidence, every theory. Some of it is classified information that I should not share, but I am beyond punishment now. Hyunwoo took the crystal carefully. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. Knowledge is burden. Kelthus looked out at the stars again. The universe is vast and old. Humanity is young. The Silent Ones are something in between. Ancient but not eternal. The choices your species makes in the next few years will determine your fate for millennia to come. Can you give me any advice? Anything that might help us. Kelthus was silent for a long time. Finally he spoke. The Silent Ones have protected humanity for 200,000 years. They have prevented other species from interfering with your development. They have kept you safe. But safety and freedom are not the same thing. At some point, every child must leave their parents' house. The question is whether you leave willingly when you are ready, or whether you are forced out when the parent decides you have The research team gathered in a secure facility beneath Geneva. The room was shielded from all outside signals, designed for conversations that needed absolute privacy. Taeyang, Jiwon, and Hyunwoo were there, along with 3 new faces. Bo-Ram was a mathematician specializing in quantum mechanics. Chanwoo was an engineer who designed the sensor systems for deep space probes. Sujin was a historian who had spent her career studying ancient human civilizations. Hyunwoo placed the data crystal from Kelthus on the table. Before we begin, everyone needs to understand. What we discuss here could change everything humanity believes about itself. If you're not ready for that, leave now. No one moved. Good. Hyunwoo activated the crystal, and holographic displays filled the room with data. Scholar Kelthus has given us everything the Veldari know about the Silent Ones, and it's more than we expected. For the next hour, they reviewed the information. Ancient texts, sensor readings, historical accounts from extinct civilizations. The story that emerged was consistent and terrifying. The Silent Ones had been watching Earth for at least 800,000 years, possibly longer. They protected humanity from outside interference, and they showed no signs of leaving. The question now, Taeyang said, is whether we can find evidence of their presence using our own technology. If they're really there, there must be some way to detect them. Bo-Ram, the mathematician, spoke up. She was young, barely 30, but already recognized as brilliant in her field. Actually, there might be. The Veldari data suggests these constructs exist partially in higher dimensions. That means they interact with normal space through quantum effects. Explain that for those of us who aren't physicists, Jiwon said. Think of it like this, Bo-Ram said, pulling up equations on one of the displays. If you have a 3-dimensional object passing through a 2-dimensional plane, the 2-dimensional beings would only see a cross-section. They wouldn't understand the full shape. Similarly, if higher dimensional structures exist around Earth, we would only detect their influence on our 3-dimensional space. Chanwoo, the engineer, nodded slowly. Like quantum fluctuations, random variations in the quantum field that we normally attribute to natural causes. Exactly, except what if they're not random? Bo-Ram began typing rapidly, pulling up data from quantum sensors around Earth. I've been analyzing background quantum noise for the past 3 days, and I found something strange. She displayed a complex graph showing quantum fluctuations over time. To most people in the room, it looked like random noise. But Boram highlighted certain sections. Here, here, and here. The fluctuations aren't random. They show patterns. Mathematical patterns that shouldn't exist naturally. What kind of patterns? Taeyang asked. Computational patterns. The quantum field around Earth is being used to process information. Massive amounts of information. Boram zoomed in on one section. It's like the entire planet is surrounded by a quantum computer operating in dimensions we can't directly observe. The room was silent. Chan Wu leaned forward, studying the data. How much computational power are we talking about? More than all of Earth's computers combined. By several orders of magnitude. Boram pulled up more data, and it's been running constantly for as long as we have records. We just never noticed because we thought it was background noise. Hyunwoo turned to Chan Wu. You said you've been reviewing probe failures. Did you find anything? The engineer nodded grimly. 37 probes have failed at the boundary. I analyzed the corrupted data from each one. He brought up his own displays. Before each probe stopped transmitting, it recorded a massive influx of quantum entanglement events. Something was scanning them at the quantum level, reading every piece of information encoded in their circuits. Reading them how? Ji-Wan asked. By entangling with every particle in the probe simultaneously. It's a level of control over quantum mechanics that should be impossible. But the data doesn't lie. Chan-Woo showed a simulation. Imagine someone could read a book by briefly touching it. Not just the words on the pages, but every thought the author had while writing it. Every intention behind every word. That's what happened to our probes. Su Jin, the historian, had been quiet until now. She was older than the others, with gray in her hair and a thoughtful expression. I've been researching human history with a new perspective, she said, looking for evidence of external influence on human development. And I found far more than I expected. She brought up her own displays showing timelines of human civilization. Human beings evolved rapidly, too rapidly according to standard evolutionary models. We went from primitive tools to agriculture in just a few thousand years. From agriculture to industrial civilization in just a few thousand more. This acceleration is unusual. Natural selection takes time, Dr. Jae-hyun had said during an earlier briefing. Soo-jin continued his thought. But what if it wasn't just natural selection? What if environmental pressures were being carefully managed? She highlighted several points on the timeline. Major extinction events that should have wiped out early humans but didn't. Climate changes that forced humans to develop new technologies. Migration patterns that spread human populations in ways that encouraged cultural development. Looking at it all together, it's almost as if someone was creating challenges for humanity. Not too hard or we would have gone extinct. Not too easy or we would have stagnated. Just right to encourage growth. You're suggesting the Silent Ones have been steering human evolution, Taeyang said. Not just evolution. Cultural development too. Soo-jin pulled up texts from ancient civilizations. Every human culture has stories of teachers who came from elsewhere. Gods who gave humanity fire, agriculture, writing, mathematics. We've always assumed these were myths. But what if some of them were real? What if the Silent Ones occasionally intervened directly, pushing humanity in specific directions? That's a big leap, Ji-Won said, is it? Soo-jin displayed more data. Consider the timing of major breakthroughs in human history. Agriculture developed independently in at least 6 different locations around the world, all within a few thousand years of each other. Writing systems emerged independently in multiple civilizations. Mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy. These innovations appeared in different cultures with no contact between them, but within similar time frames. That's statistically unlikely. Boram was studying the data with interest. You're suggesting the Silent Ones inspired these breakthroughs? I'm suggesting they created conditions that made these breakthroughs possible. And maybe occasionally they gave humans a push in the right direction. Soo-jin pulled up a map showing archaeological sites. There are artifacts we've never fully explained. Objects that seemed too advanced for their time period. Structures that required mathematical knowledge that shouldn't have existed yet. We've always found ways to rationalize these things. But what if we've been wrong? Chan-Woo spoke up again. There's something else. I've been analyzing asteroid trajectories for the past 100,000 years. He displayed a simulation showing the solar system. Earth should have been hit by extinction-level asteroids at least 3 times in human history. Each time the asteroid changed course just enough to miss us. Asteroids don't just change course, Ji-Won said. Exactly. Natural gravitational effects can alter trajectories. But these changes are too precise, too convenient. Chanwu ran the simulation, showing each near miss. Something deflected them. Something with enough power and precision to alter the path of objects weighing billions of tons. Taeyang stood and walked around the room, processing everything. So we have quantum computational activity around Earth. We have probe failures consistent with advanced scanning technology. We have human development that seems guided. We have asteroid deflections that saved humanity from extinction. All of it points to the same conclusion. The Silent Ones are real, Hyunwoo said, and they've been actively managing humanity's development for hundreds of thousands of years. The question is why, Jiwon said. What's the purpose? What are they preparing us for? Boram pulled up a new set of calculations. I've been thinking about that. If you wanted to cultivate an intelligent species, what would you need? First, survival. Protect them from external threats like asteroids and hostile aliens. Second, development. Create pressures that encourage technological and social advancement. Third, independence. Let them develop their own culture, their own identity, without direct interference. Like raising a child, Sujin said. Yes. But children eventually grow up. They leave home. They become independent. Boram looked at the others. What if that's what's happening now? What if humanity is reaching maturity and the Silent Ones are preparing to reveal themselves? Or to leave, Chanwu said quietly. What if their protection is ending? What if we're about to be on our own? That thought hung in the air. For hundreds of thousands of years, humanity had been protected without knowing it, guided without realizing. What would happen when that guidance ended? Taeyang made a decision. We need to brief the Human Defense Council. Show them all of this. They need to see the evidence. They're going to ask what we should do, Jiwon said. I know, and I think we need to make a recommendation. Taeyang looked at each of them. We can't ignore this. We can't pretend we don't know. The question is whether... The debate in the Human Defense Council chamber had lasted for 3 days. Representatives from every government, every colony, every major institution on Earth had weighed in. Some argued for patience, for waiting until they knew more. Others demanded immediate action, refusing to accept that humanity had been kept in the dark for so long. Still others warned that any attempt at contact could be catastrophic. Finally, Admiral Daeun called for a vote. The decision was narrow but clear. Humanity would attempt contact with the Silent Ones. Now, 2 weeks later, Taeyang stood on the bridge of the research vessel Discovery, watching Earth grow smaller behind them. The ship was humanity's most advanced, equipped with every sensor and communication system they had developed. Alongside him were Jiwon and Hyunwoo, both looking nervous but determined. Dr. Jae-hyun was there too, along with Boram and Chanwoo. They had volunteered to be the contact team, knowing the risk. Approaching the boundary, the ship's captain said. She was a veteran spacer named Hye-jin, calm under pressure. 15 light-years from Earth in 10 minutes. This was where the probes had failed, where the Veldari ships had been warned away. Humanity was about to cross a line that had been forbidden for millennia. Boram was at her station, monitoring quantum fluctuations. Activity is increasing. Whatever's out here, it knows we're coming. Chanwu checked the probe data one more time. All systems functioning normally. So far, they had spent weeks crafting their message. It needed to be simple, clear, and respectful. In the end, they settled on something direct. We know you are there. We wish to understand. We are ready. The message was encoded in multiple formats. Radio waves, laser pulses, quantum entanglement patterns. Even mathematical sequences that would be recognizable to any advanced intelligence. They would broadcast it the moment they crossed the boundary. 1 minute, Captain Hye-jin announced. Taeyang felt his heart pounding. Everything humanity had been, everything they might become could change in the next few minutes. Boundary reached, Chanwu said. Transmitting message now. The communication array sent out their message in every direction across every frequency. For a moment, nothing happened. The ship continued forward, systems running normally. Boram's displays showed the usual quantum fluctuations. Then everything changed. Quantum activity spiking, Boram said, her voice tight. Massive increase. It's everywhere around us. On the view screen, space itself seemed to ripple. Reality bent in ways that hurt to watch. Geometric patterns appeared, impossibly complex, existing in more dimensions than human eyes could properly perceive. They were beautiful and terrible at the same time. What is that? Jiwon whispered. The silent ones, Hyunwoo said, or their constructs at least. The structure that materialized around them was larger than Jupiter. It was made of materials that shouldn't exist, arranged in patterns that defied physics. It pulsed with energy that Boram's instruments couldn't identify, and it was moving, reconfiguring, pieces of it folding through dimensions that humans had only theorized about. Captain Hyojin's voice was steady but strained. All crew, stay calm. Hold your positions. I'm detecting some kind of scanning, Chanwoo reported. Like what happened to the probes, but more thorough. It's reading everything. The ship's computers, our personal devices, even our neural patterns. They're reading our minds? Ji-won asked, alarmed. Not exactly. More like they're mapping our thought patterns. Understanding how we think. Chanwoo looked up from his instruments. It's not invasive. It's more like they're learning our language. 3 days. That's how long they waited. The ship sat in space, surrounded by the massive construct while the silent ones apparently studied them. During that time, the crew maintained their routines as best they could. They ate, they slept, they monitored their instruments, and they waited. On Earth, humanity held its breath. The Discovery was transmitting regular updates. Everyone knew what was happening. Billions of people watched and wondered. On the morning of the 4th day, Boram's instruments registered a change. Quantum patterns shifting. Something's happening. The construct around them pulsed with light. Not electromagnetic radiation, but something else. Something that existed in multiple dimensions at once. And then they heard it. Not with their ears, but directly in their minds. It was not painful. It was not frightening. It simply was. A presence, vast and ancient, speaking to them in a way that bypassed language entirely. They understood without words, comprehended without translation. But even more shocking, at the exact same moment, every human everywhere experienced the same thing. On Earth, in the colonies and ships scattered across the solar system, 3 billion people suddenly heard the voice of the silent ones in their minds. The message was clear. We are the Caretaker Protocol. We have watched your species since before you were fully human. We have guided your development. We have protected your world. We have waited for you to reach this moment. Images flooded into their minds. The early days of humanity, struggling to survive. The silent ones observing, analyzing, making subtle changes to the environment, deflecting asteroids, preventing extinction events, creating challenges that pushed humans to evolve, to adapt, to grow smarter and more cooperative. You were selected 300,000 years ago. Among all the species on your world, you showed the greatest potential, not because you were the strongest or the fastest, but because you could cooperate in large groups, because you could imagine futures that did not yet exist, because you could learn from your mistakes and pass that knowledge to your children. More images. The development of language, of agriculture, of civilization, the silent ones watching it all, occasionally intervening when humanity faced extinction, but mostly letting them develop naturally. We are old. Our creators existed 3 billion years ago. They achieved understanding beyond physical form and departed this level of reality. Before leaving, they created us to nurture life in the galaxy, to find promising species and help them reach their potential. The crew of Discovery saw other worlds, other species being watched and guided by the silent ones. Some had succeeded and joined the galactic community. Others had failed, destroying themselves before reaching maturity. Humanity was one of 12 currently being cultivated. We enforced the boundary around your world because other species would interfere. Some would study you like animals in a laboratory. Some would attempt to conquer or recruit you before you were ready. Some would destroy you out of fear of competition. We have kept you safe so you could develop without trauma. Taeyang found his voice, though he wasn't sure if he spoke aloud or just thought the words. Why reveal yourselves now? Because you have reached the threshold. You have developed spaceflight. You have begun to explore beyond your world, and most importantly, you have begun to ask questions about your place in the universe. These are signs of maturity. Ji-won asked the question they were all thinking. What happens now? You must choose. We can continue to protect you, to guide your development in isolation. You will be safe, but you will remain separate from the wider galaxy. Or you can join the galactic community as an independent species. You will face dangers and challenges without our protection, but you will be free to make your own choices, your own mistakes, your own destiny. The weight of that choice pressed down on them. Hundreds of thousands of years of protection, or independence with all its risks. Hyunwoo spoke up. Why give us the choice? You've guided us this far. You must have an opinion on what we should do. We were created to nurture, not to control. Our purpose is to help species reach maturity, not to keep them as children forever. The choice must be yours. Dr. Jae-hyun asked a scientific question. What made you choose humanity? Why us specifically? You possess something rare in the galaxy, the ability to cooperate in massive numbers with individuals you are not related to. Most intelligent species can only trust their immediate families or small tribes. You can form nations of millions working together toward common goals. This makes you powerful. This makes you dangerous. This makes you promising. Dangerous how? Taeyang asked. You develop quickly. You innovate rapidly. You adapt to challenges faster than most species. You have gone from primitive tools to spaceflight in a mere 10,000 years. Some species take 1,000,000 years to achieve the same progress. This speed frightens other civilizations. They see humanity as a potential threat. Boram, ever the scientist, had a technical question. How have you been watching us without being detected? We exist partially in dimensions beyond your normal perception. Our constructs phase between higher dimensional space and your three-dimensional reality. To you, we are invisible, like shadows cast by objects you cannot see. But we can observe and influence your reality when necessary. Captain Hee-jin spoke for the first time. Have you ever directly interfered with human affairs? Beyond deflecting asteroids and preventing extinction events, there was a pause. Then the Silent Ones answered. Occasionally. When humanity stood at a critical juncture, we inspired individuals. A mathematician who dreamed of a new equation. An inventor who imagined a new machine. A leader who envisioned a better society. We did not give them the answers, but we opened their minds to possibilities. The achievement was still theirs. So human progress is partly why the world had changed overnight. Every person on Earth, every colonist on Mars and Europa, every miner in the asteroid belt had heard the voice of the Silent Ones. For the first time in human history, everyone had experienced the same moment of revelation simultaneously. There was no room for denial, no space for doubt. The truth was undeniable. Taeyang stood before the United Earth Assembly, the largest gathering of human representatives ever convened. The chamber was packed with delegates from every nation and colony. Behind them, billions watched via broadcast. The weight of their attention was almost physical. For hundreds of thousands of years, Taeyang began, humanity believed we were alone. We looked at the stars and wondered if anyone was watching. Now we know. We have always been watched. We have always been guided. The question before us is what we do with this knowledge. He brought up holographic displays showing everything they had learned. The ancient Veldari records, the quantum computational patterns, the deflected asteroids, the evidence of guided evolution, and finally, the message from the Silent Ones themselves. They offer us a choice, he continued. Continued protection or independence, safety or freedom, but before we can make that choice, we need to understand what each option truly means. Admiral Da-Yun took over, presenting the military analysis. If we choose independence, we must accept that the galaxy is not a peaceful place. The Silent Ones have been protecting us from threats we never knew existed. Without that protection, we will be vulnerable. She displayed data on alien civilizations. We have identified at least 47 spacefaring species within 1,000 light-years of Earth. The Veldari are the oldest and most powerful, but they are also cautious and generally non-aggressive. However, there are others. The display showed species that humanity had never encountered. Some were territorial, defending their space with violence. Others were expansionist, seeking to control resources and populations. Still others were simply xenophobic, viewing any new species as a threat to be eliminated. Without the Silent One's protection, we estimate a 30% chance of military conflict within the first decade. Some of these civilizations have technology far beyond ours. We would be at a disadvantage. Dr. Jae-hyun presented the scientific perspective. However, independence also offers opportunities. The Silent Ones have been limiting our contact with other species. If that limit is removed, we can share knowledge and technology. We can learn from civilizations that are millions of years old. Our rate of advancement could accelerate dramatically. He showed projections of technological development with and without galactic contact. The difference was striking. Within a century of full galactic integration, human technology could advance by thousands of years. Medicine, energy production, space travel, all of it could be revolutionized. Jiwan addressed the cultural implications. But we also need to consider identity. For all of human history, we have developed our own culture, our own values, our own way of seeing the universe. If we suddenly have access to thousands of alien cultures, each with their own philosophies and beliefs, how do we maintain our humanity? She pulled up examples from Earth's own history. When isolated cultures made contact with technologically advanced civilizations, they often lost their identity. Their languages disappeared. Their traditions faded. Their unique perspectives were absorbed into the dominant culture. We need to ensure that doesn't happen to humanity as a whole. Su Jin, the historian, offered a longer view. Throughout history, humanity has faced moments of choice. Moments where we decided our future direction. The development of agriculture. The age of exploration. The Industrial Revolution. The space age. Each time we chose to move forward despite the risks. Each time we accepted danger in exchange for growth. She looked around the chamber. The question is whether we will do so again. Whether we have the courage to leave the safety of our childhood and face the universe as adults. The debate that followed lasted for weeks. It dominated every news broadcast, every public forum, every private conversation. Humanity was forced to confront fundamental questions about who they were and who they wanted to become. Some argued for accepting continued protection. They pointed out the dangers of premature independence. They noted that the Silent Ones had kept humanity safe for thousands of generations. Why abandon that safety now? Let humanity continue to develop in peace, they said, until we are truly ready. Others demanded immediate independence. They argued that freedom was more valuable than safety. They refused to accept that humanity needed guardians, no matter how benevolent. They wanted to face the galaxy on their own terms, to prove that humans could survive without help. A third group emerged, proposing a middle path. Accept the 50-year transition period. Use that time to prepare, to learn, to build defenses. Enter the galaxy gradually with guidance, but with the goal of eventual full independence. The debate grew heated. Protests erupted in major cities. Some people celebrated the revelation of the Silent Ones, seeing them as protective gods. Others felt betrayed, angry that humanity had been manipulated without their knowledge. Still others simply felt overwhelmed, unable to process the enormity of what they had learned. Taeyang watched it all from his office in Geneva, feeling the weight of responsibility. He had been the one to ask the questions that led to this moment. He had pushed for contact with the Silent Ones. Now humanity faced the consequences of that knowledge. Jiwan entered his office carrying reports from the colonies. Mars is leaning toward independence. They've always valued self-sufficiency. Europa is split. The asteroid miners are mostly in favor of the transition period. They understand the value of preparation. And Earth? Taeyang asked, divided like everything else. Jiwan sat down heavily. The irony is that the Silent Ones gave us this choice specifically because humanity can cooperate in large groups. But right now we're more divided than we've been in decades. Hyunwoo joined them, looking exhausted. He had been consulting with the Beldari, trying to understand how other species had faced similar choices. I spoke with Elder Kira, he said. She told me something interesting. The Veldari faced a similar moment in their history long ago. They were a protected species once, watched over by their own guardians. What happened? Taeyang asked. They chose independence. It was difficult. They lost a lot in the early years. But they believe it made them stronger, that the struggle for survival pushed them to achieve things they never would have under protection. Hyunwoo paused. She also said that every species that chooses continued protection eventually stagnates. They become comfortable, complacent. They stop pushing boundaries. But the ones who choose immediate independence face higher risks, Jiwan countered. Many of them don't survive their first century in the galaxy. True, Hyunwoo admitted. That's why the transition period makes sense. It gives us time to prepare while still committing to independence. A message came through on Taeyang's console. It was from Boram, who had been analyzing the quantum patterns around Earth. You need to see this, the message read. They rushed to her lab. Boram had displays covering every wall, all showing quantum data. The Silent Ones are doing something, she explained. The quantum activity is changing. It's like they're reconfiguring their entire network around Earth. What does that mean? Jiwan asked. I think they're preparing for our decision. Whatever we choose, they're getting ready to implement it. Boram pointed to specific patterns. See here? This looks like they're establishing new connections to other parts of the galaxy, and here they're reinforcing certain structures while dismantling others. Chanwu had been monitoring deep space. He pulled up his own data. I'm seeing movement at the boundary. Ships, not human ships. Alien vessels from multiple species all gathering at the edge of the protected zone. They're watching, Hyunwoo said. The whole galaxy knows about humanity's choice. They're waiting to see what we decide. Admiral Dayun called an emergency council meeting. When they gathered, her expression was grim. We have a problem. Some of the ships Chanwu detected are military vessels, species that view humanity as a potential threat. If we choose independence, they might attack immediately. Can we defend ourselves? Someone asked. Against one or two species, maybe. Against a coordinated assault from multiple civilizations? She shook her head. We're not ready for that. Dr. Jae Hyun stood up. Then we need to make it clear that attacking humanity would be a mistake. We need to show strength, not weakness, and how? Admiral Daun asked. By demonstrating what makes humanity special. The Silent Ones chose us for a reason. We cooperate in ways other species cannot. We adapt faster. We innovate constantly. We need to show the galaxy that humanity is not prey. The world had changed overnight. Every person on Earth, every colonist on Mars and Europa, every miner in the asteroid belt had heard the voice of the Silent Ones. For the first time in human history, everyone had experienced the same moment of revelation simultaneously. There was no room for denial, no space for doubt. The truth was undeniable. Taeyang stood before the United Earth Assembly, the largest gathering of human representatives ever convened. The chamber was packed with delegates from every nation and colony. Behind them, billions watched via broadcast. The weight of their attention was almost physical. For hundreds of thousands of years, Taeyang began, humanity believed we were alone. We looked at the stars and wondered if anyone was watching. Now we know. We have always been watched. We have always been guided. The question before us is what we do with this knowledge. He brought up holographic displays showing everything they had learned. The ancient Veldari records, the quantum computational patterns, the deflected asteroids, the evidence of guided evolution, and finally the message from the Silent Ones themselves. They offer us a choice, he continued. Continued protection or independence, safety or freedom. But before we can make that choice, we need to understand what each option truly means. Admiral Da-Yoon took over, presenting the military analysis. If we choose independence, we must accept that the galaxy is not a peaceful place. The Silent Ones have been protecting us from threats we never knew existed. Without that protection, we will be vulnerable. She displayed data on alien civilizations. We have identified at least 47 spacefaring species within 1,000 light-years of Earth. The Veldari are the oldest and most powerful, but they are also cautious and generally non-aggressive. However, there are others. The display showed species that humanity had never encountered. Some were territorial, defending their space with violence. Others were expansionist, seeking to control resources and populations. Still others were simply xenophobic, viewing any new species as a threat to be eliminated. Without the Silent One's protection, we estimate a 30% chance of military conflict within the first decade. Some of these civilizations have technology far beyond ours. We would be at a disadvantage. Dr. Jae-hyun presented the scientific perspective. However, independence also offers opportunities. The Silent Ones have been limiting our contact with other species. If that limit is removed, we can share knowledge and technology. We can learn from civilizations that are millions of years old. Our rate of advancement could accelerate dramatically. He showed projections of technological development with and without galactic contact. The difference was striking. Within a century of full galactic integration, human technology could advance by thousands of years. Medicine, energy production, space travel, all of it could be revolutionized. Jiwon addressed the cultural implications, but we also need to consider identity. For all of human history, we have developed our own culture, our own values, our own way of seeing the universe. If we suddenly have access to thousands of alien cultures, each with their own philosophies and beliefs, how do we maintain our humanity? She pulled up examples from Earth's own history. When isolated cultures made contact with technologically advanced civilizations, they often lost their identity. Their languages disappeared. Their traditions faded. Their unique perspectives were absorbed into the dominant culture. We need to ensure that doesn't happen to humanity as a whole. Sujin, the historian, offered a longer view. Throughout history, humanity has faced moments of choice. Moments where we decided our future direction. The development of agriculture, the age of exploration, the Industrial Revolution, the space age. Each time we chose to move forward despite the risks. Each time we accepted danger in exchange for growth. She looked around the chamber. The question is whether we will do so again. Whether we have the courage to leave the safety of our childhood and face the universe as adults. The debate that followed lasted for weeks. It dominated every news broadcast, every public forum, every private conversation. Humanity was forced to confront fundamental questions about who they were and who they wanted to become. Some argued for accepting continued protection. They pointed out the dangers of premature independence. They noted that the Silent Ones had kept humanity safe for thousands of generations. Why abandon that safety now? Let humanity continue to develop in peace, they said, until we are truly ready. Others demanded immediate independence. They argued that freedom was more valuable than safety. They refused to accept that humanity needed guardians no matter how benevolent. They wanted to face the galaxy on their own terms to prove that humans could survive without help. A third group emerged, proposing a middle path. Accept the 50-year transition period. Use that time to prepare, to learn, to build defenses. Enter the galaxy gradually with guidance but with the goal of eventual full independence. The debate grew heated. Protests erupted in major cities. Some people celebrated the revelation of the Silent Ones, seeing them as protective gods. Others felt betrayed, angry that humanity had been manipulated without their knowledge. Still others simply felt overwhelmed, unable to process the enormity of what they had learned. Taeyang watched it all from his office in Geneva, feeling the weight of responsibility. He had been the one to ask the questions that led to this moment. He had pushed for contact with the Silent Ones. Now humanity faced the consequences of that knowledge. Ji-won entered his office carrying reports from the colonies. Mars is leaning toward independence. They've always valued self-sufficiency. Europa is split. The asteroid miners are mostly in favor of the transition period. They understand the value of preparation. And Earth? Taeyang asked. Divided like everything else. Ji-won sat down heavily. The irony is that the Silent Ones gave us this choice specifically because humanity can cooperate in large groups. But right now we're more divided than we've been in decades. Hyunwoo joined them, looking exhausted. He had been consulting with the Veldari, trying to understand how other species had faced similar choices. I spoke with Elder Kira, he said. She told me something interesting. The Veldari faced a similar moment in their history long ago. They were a protected species once, watched over by their own guardians. What happened? Taeyang asked. They chose independence. It was difficult. They lost a lot in the early years, but they believe it made them stronger. That the struggle for survival pushed them to achieve things they never would have under protection. Hyunwoo paused. She also said that every species that chooses continued protection eventually stagnates. They become comfortable, complacent. They stop pushing boundaries. But the ones who choose immediate independence face higher risks, Ji-won countered. Many of them don't survive their first century in the galaxy. True, Hyunwoo admitted. That's why the transition period makes sense. It gives us time to prepare while still committing to independence. A message came through on Taeyang's console. It was from Boram, who had been analyzing the quantum patterns around Earth. You need to see this, the message read. They rushed to her lab. Boram had displays covering every wall, all showing quantum data. The Silent Ones are doing something, she explained. The quantum activity is changing. It's like they're reconfiguring their entire network around Earth. What does that mean? Ji-won asked. I think they're preparing for our decision. Whatever we choose, they're getting ready to implement it. Boram pointed to specific patterns. See here? This looks like they're establishing new connections to other parts of the galaxy. And here they're reinforcing certain structures while dismantling others. Chanwoo had been monitoring deep space. He pulled up his own data. I'm seeing movement at the boundary. Ships, not human ships. Alien vessels from multiple species, all gathering at the edge of the protected zone. They're watching, Hyunwoo said. The whole galaxy knows about humanity's choice. They're waiting to see what we decide. Admiral Da-eun called an emergency council meeting. When they gathered, her expression was grim. We have a problem. Some of the ships Chanwoo detected are military vessels, species that view humanity as a potential threat. If we choose independence, they might attack immediately. Can we defend ourselves? Someone asked. Against one or two species, maybe. Against a coordinated assault from multiple civilizations? She shook her head. We're not ready for that. Dr. Jae-hyun stood up. Then we need to make it clear that attacking humanity would be a mistake. We need to show strength, not weakness. How? Admiral Da-eun asked. By demonstrating what makes humanity special. The Silent Ones chose us for a reason. We cooperate in ways other species cannot. We adapt faster. We innovate constantly. We need to show the galaxy that humanity is not prey. An idea began to form. Over the next days, a plan developed. If humanity chose the transition period, they would use that time not just to prepare defenses but to demonstrate their value to the galactic community. They would share their art, their science, their culture. They would establish diplomatic relationships. They would prove that humanity was worth welcoming, not destroying. The United Earth Assembly convened for the final vote. Every delegate had consulted with their constituents. Every voice had been heard. Now it was time to decide. Taeyang addressed the assembly one last time. Whatever we choose today will I. 5 years had passed since humanity made their choice. The transition period was 1/10 complete, and already Earth had changed in ways no one could have predicted. Taeyang stood in the new Galactic Affairs building in Geneva, looking at displays showing humanity's expanding presence in the galaxy. The building itself was a gift from the Veldari, constructed with materials and techniques that human engineers were still trying to understand. It served as the hub for all of humanity's interactions with alien civilizations. Ambassador, a voice called. It was Minho, a young diplomat who had joined the Galactic Affairs team 2 years ago. The delegation from Sarthis Prime has arrived. They're ready for the cultural exchange meeting. Taeyang nodded. The Sarthians were one of the 11 other cultivated species. Like humanity, they were approaching independence under the Silent One's guidance. Unlike humanity, they were silicon-based life forms who communicated through light pulses. The meeting would be interesting. As he walked through the building, Taeyang reflected on how much had changed. In the first year after the vote, the Silent Ones had begun their teaching in earnest. They revealed the locations of dangerous species that humanity should avoid. They explained the politics of the galactic community, the old alliances and ancient grudges that shaped interstellar relations. They introduced humanity to the other cultivated species, creating a network of civilizations who would enter the galaxy together. Most importantly, they had begun to reduce their protection gradually. The quantum constructs around Earth were still there, but they were less active. Human ships could now travel beyond the 15 light-year boundary without interference. Deep space probes functioned normally. The cage was opening slowly but steadily. The meeting with the Sarthians went well. Despite their radical biological differences, humans and Sarthians found common ground. Both species valued cooperation. Both had developed complex social structures. Both were nervous about entering the wider galaxy. By the end of the meeting, they had agreed to establish a joint research station to share technology and knowledge. After the Sarthians left, Ji-won entered the office. She had been promoted to Director of Interspecies Relations, overseeing humanity's growing network of alien contacts. We received a message from the Kelvin Empire, she said, her expression troubled. They want to open diplomatic relations. Taeyang frowned. The Kelvins were one of the species Admiral Da-eun had warned about. They were aggressive, expansionist, and had a history of conquering less advanced civilizations. What do they want? They claim they want to establish trade agreements. But our intelligence suggests they're testing us, trying to gauge our strength and vulnerabilities. Ji-won pulled up data on the Kelvins. They've been watching Earth for years. Now that the protection is weakening, they're making their move. What does Admiral Da-eun recommend? She says we should engage diplomatically but maintain strong defenses. Show strength without being aggressive. Ji-won hesitated. But there's something else. The Silent Ones sent us a message. They said this is a test. How we handle species like the Kelvins will determine whether we're ready for full independence. Taeyang understood. The transition period was not just about learning technology and making friends. It was about proving that humanity could handle threats, navigate dangers, and make difficult decisions without guidance. Set up a meeting, he said, but make it clear that we're willing to talk, not to be intimidated. And have Da-eun position some ships nearby, visible but not threatening. Over the next months, the Kelvin situation developed. The initial meeting was tense. The Kelvin ambassador was condescending, treating humans as inferior. But Taeyang held firm, refusing to be bullied. He made it clear that humanity understood galactic politics and would not be taken advantage of. The Kelvins pushed harder, making unreasonable demands in trade negotiations. They wanted access to Earth's resources at unfair prices. They wanted permission to establish military bases in human territory. Each demand was designed to test how far they could push. Each time humanity refused, politely but firmly. And each time Admiral Dayun made sure the Kelvins saw that humanity was building its military capabilities. New ships, better weapons, stronger defenses. Finally, the Kelvins backed down. They agreed to fair trade terms and dropped their demands for military bases. The crisis had passed, but everyone knew it was just the first of many challenges to come. In the 7th year of the transition, something unexpected happened. One of the other cultivated species, the Thrain, chose to reject the Silent One's guidance entirely. They declared immediate and complete independence, refusing any further help or teaching. The galaxy watched to see what would happen. Within months, the Thrain were attacked by the very threats the Silent Ones had warned them about. Their defenses were inadequate. Their diplomacy was clumsy. They made mistakes that humanity, with the Silent One's guidance, had learned to avoid. The Thrain survived, but barely. They lost colonies, suffered casualties, and were forced into unfavorable alliances just to stay safe. It was a harsh lesson for all the cultivated species. Independence had a cost, and being unprepared could be fatal. Humanity watched and learned. The transition period suddenly felt less like overprotectiveness and more like necessary preparation. By the 10th year, humanity had established itself as a rising power in the galaxy. Not militarily powerful yet, but diplomatically savvy, scientifically innovative, and culturally influential. Human art, music, and literature had spread to dozens of worlds. Human technology, particularly in computer systems and artificial intelligence, was beginning to attract attention. But success brought new challenges. Some species began to see humanity as a threat, not because humans were aggressive, but because they were advancing so quickly. In just 10 years, humanity had gone from complete isolation to active participation in galactic affairs. That rate of progress worried civilizations who had taken thousands of years to achieve the same level of integration. Yun Wu, now serving as Earth's chief xenoarchaeologist, uncovered something interesting in ancient Veldari texts. He called Taeyang to his lab to show him. "Look at this," Hyun Woo said, displaying ancient records. "I found references to other species that were cultivated by the Silent Ones in the past. Species that successfully transitioned to independence." "How many?" Taeyang asked. "At least 30 over the past million years. And there's a pattern." Hyun Woo highlighted specific data. The species that succeeded had something in common. They used their transition period not just to prepare for independence, but to form alliances with other cultivated species. They entered the galaxy as a block, supporting each other. Taeyang saw the implications immediately. We need to strengthen our relationships with the other cultivated species. Not just diplomatic relations, but real partnerships. Over the following years, humanity worked to build those partnerships. Joint military exercises with the Sarthians, technology exchanges with the Pren, a species that excelled in biological engineering, cultural festivals with the Marathi, who had the most beautiful music in the known galaxy. The 12 cultivated species began to form a loose confederation. They shared resources, defended each other, and presented a united front to the rest of the galaxy. Together, they were far stronger than any of them could be alone. Dr. Jae Hyun, now elderly but still active in research, made a breakthrough in understanding the Silent One's technology. Working with scientists from the other cultivated species, he managed to partially replicate their quantum computational methods. It was a crude copy, far less sophisticated than the original, but it worked. "This changes everything," he explained to the Human Defense Council. "If we can harness quantum computing at this level, our technology will advance exponentially. We could close the gap with older civilizations within decades instead of centuries." Admiral Da-Yun, also older now but still sharp, saw the strategic implications. "It also means we're learning to function without the Silent Ones. We're not just preparing for independence. We're achieving it ahead of schedule." As the 50th year approached, humanity faced one final test. The Kelvin Empire, still resentful of their earlier failed attempt to dominate humanity, assembled a fleet. They claimed it was for military exercises, but everyone knew the truth. They were planning to attack Earth the moment the Silent One's protection ended. The Human Defense Council met an emergency session. The new Admiral Kyung-ho presented the military situation. We have 40 ships, our best and most advanced. The Kelvins have over 200. Even with our technological improvements, we're outnumbered. What about our allies? Tae-young asked. He was older now, gray in his hair, but still serving as Earth's primary diplomat. Ji-won answered. She had aged gracefully, her experience showing in every word. The Sarthians will send 20 ships. The Pren have 30, the Marathi another 15. Combined with our forces, we'll have roughly 100 ships. Still outnumbered 2-1, Kyung-ho noted. She had become humanity's leading scientist. Her work on quantum systems revolutionary. We've been sharing technology with our allies. Our combined fleet uses coordinated quantum computing for tactics and targeting. The Kelvins have never faced anything like it. Tae-young made a decisive.